calling in from Davao City. We have Julio from Bacolod. We have Marvin. We have Nadine from Kamsur, Bicol. Hello, Nadine. We also have Rachel joining us. There are a lot of us joining in from Davao. Jomel is joining in from Qatar. Hello, Jomel. Thank you. Marlon is from Cagayan. Armando is from Pangasinan. Althea is representing UCC. Melissa is from Bulacan. Joy is from Misamis Oriental. I can really see na from all over the Philippines yung ano natin this afternoon, participants natin. So, hi Frances. I'm not sure kung nasa San Fernando ka. Let me know. I can say hi. Donna is from Quezon City. We also have Robert from DSWD. Yan. So before we start, we'd love to check in with you. And our check-in question this afternoon is parang a savoring exercise. So I want you to recall a time where may small act of compassion na ginawa for you at work or nakita mo at work that made a difference. Ano yung small act of compassion na yon? So you can join us on Menti. You can either scan the QR code you can see on the screen, or you can type in menti.com and enter the code 236593 and 6. We're also going to be sending the link on the chat box. So you can just click on that link and tell us what's one small act of compassion you've experienced or witnessed at work that made a difference. Yes. Clarice is from Quezon Province. Dane is from Isla Gigante. Giovanni. Ang daming from Davao this afternoon. Ayan. So, Mary Joyce, we don't have an attendance. We usually just give an evaluation form at the end of the webinar. So, please be sure to answer that so that you will be getting your e-certificate. Okay, tingnan natin kung ano na ang mga sagot natin dito. So, merong isa na simply by listening when you want to vent out is already a big, small act of compassion, diba? It really means a lot for people. Meron naman, my division chief helped me to accomplish a task that I have no idea on. So imagine yung pag-mentor sa inyo ng mga tao. And sometimes it's even just seeing a smile, di ba? Meron naman isa, after my coworker found out that I was pregnant, she made sure to ask me every day if I'm all right or if I need help with anything. We really appreciate, di ba, those people who take the extra effort to take care of us, especially when we need it the most. Ayan. And may nagtanong din, what if there is none, sadly? We recognize that and we want to honor that today because hindi rin norm in every organization na there are acts of compassion. And that's why, di ba, sinisimulan natin sa ating sarili. And if tayo yung pwedeng mag-create ng ripple na yon in our organization, we hope that you can pick up a thing or two so that we can start that revolution. So meron namang supervisors paying the employee's damages on a car that was bombed or damaged by the employee. Oo, di ba kasi minsan parang isisisi lang, pero knowing that maybe they also care about the employee and alam mo yun, their safety is the top priority. They were also able to come up with that. Ayan, visiting in the hospital when they got sick, asking kung kamusta na sila. Ayan, my employer helped out our maintenance staff makapasok sa SPMC for a health concern. So even those assistants na even outside of work, di ba, if we have our connections and our resources, ang laking bagay din nun para sa ibang tao. Ayan, I can see a lot. I hope you are all inspired by what you are seeing in our mentee. Ang ganda ng mga acts of compassion. And again, if hindi siya norm in your organization, we honor that because sabi ko nga, hindi din naman sa lahat ng organization present siya. So we want to be more intentional and maybe spread this ripple in your organization as well. So maybe we can take one more minute before we start. So you can click on the link that Joy shared in the chat box and let us know. Na-inspire ako dun sa mga sagot nyo. So in the chat box, i-type nyo nga, ano yung what feelings come up for you as you read the different answers. So when someone had a private and honest talk with me instead of berating me in public or making passive-aggressive remarks for feedback. So, di ba sabi nga nila, praise in public, but when you correct, do it in private and make sure na you are using words that build up. Di ba? Hindi natin sinasabi na hindi mo kailangan sabihin kung ano yung mali. Pero paano ba natin pwede i-work towards na maging tama yung mali na nagawa? So, thank you for sharing this. Ayan, a colleague of mine noticed a new team member struggling and stayed late to create a step-by-step guide helping them feel supported and confident. Grabe yung paggawa mo rin ng step-by-step guide, no? Malaking bagay yon, I'm pretty sure, for the person who was just starting out as well. Ayan, talaga yung simple greeting, di ba? Siyempre, ayaw naman natin na, uy, parang makikita or maririnig ko pa lang yung pangalan ng isang workmate. Parang ayoko nang pumasok. Ayan. What else? Okay, I think our time is up. We're gonna revisit this later and we're really thankful for all of your sharings this afternoon. And I hope that made you a bit happy and feel positive emotions kasi medyo mabigat yung pag-uusapan natin this afternoon. Okay, so let me just check the chat box. Okay. Okay, so please make sure that you can log in on Menti. Keep that open because we are going to use that in our session this afternoon. So again, welcome to our third and final webinar this November. And that is about future-proofing your career, upskilling and reskilling for success in the modern workplace. And hello again, I'm Gabby, and I'm the Learning and Development Officer of Positive Workplaces. Together with me this afternoon is Joyce and Jewel, so they will be the ones in charge of the chat box. So if you have any questions or concerns, they will be ready to answer and really ready to share the links to make this learning experience seamless for all of you. I'm not sure if Jai is here, but she's also doing some live quoting on our Instagram page. So if you want to revisit some key points that will be described or discussed today, please do follow our Instagram as well. So for those joining us for the first time, can I see or can you type in one in the chat box if it's your first time? Because I'm really excited to introduce to you our company, Positive Workplaces. And our mission in our organization is that we co-create cultures that enhance the well-being of the Filipino workforce. And alam namin na work is very meaningful or important for Filipinos in different ways. So merong iba, yun nila kinukuha yung pangtustos nila in their everyday lives. Yung iba, it's where they live out their passion and purpose in life. And we spend most of our times in our workplaces, di ba? So we want it to be a meaningful experience, hindi a draining one na at the end of the day, parang ayoko na, gusto ko nang umalis dito sa organization na to. And that is made through what we call the positivity ripples. And parang ngayon nga, gusto ko na bawiin na it starts with you because it actually goes both ways. So we are equipping you with tips and tricks and skills, knowledge on how you can improve diba, the well-being in your organization through webinars like this one. And later may i-introduce pa ako na isa pang program. Because once we know and apply all these things that we learn, we are able to lead ourselves so that we will enhance our own well-being and kung ano man yung sobra dun, yun yung lalabas papunta sa iba. And that's how we are able to lead others and even influence the culture in the organization so that we can create more positive workplaces. At ang tawag namin dun ay yung positivity ripple. Okay, so we hope that the ripple will start with you today. And one way to be able to start that ripple is to just follow these quick reminders. I hope that you have either another device ready or to be ready to go to another link because we are going to use Mentimeter during the presentation. Prepare some paper and pen for your notes. And we highly encourage engagement. So I'm so happy that when we ask, you answer in the chat box. But of course, let's use it properly. So treat it like a learning tool where you get to express your thoughts and opinions about the topic. And I hope we can refrain from sharing pictures, comments, or links that are not related to the discussion. And of course, we believe that curiosity drives our learning. So if at any point in our discussion or even as early as now, meron kayong gustong itanong, you can also access our Pigeonhole by scanning the QR code that you can see on the screen. Okay, ayan. Sige nga, try nga natin just based on the title that you were able to see when you signed up. Can you type in at least one question in our Pigeonhole? And then type in two if you were already able to type a question. So walang right or wrong question. Again, what we want is for you to be curious about what we're going to talk about today. And tignan nyo if at the end of the session, you were also able to answer, or maybe Monica needs to expound more or share her expertise more in that particular question. So if you're done putting in your answer, can you quickly type in two? I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay. So while we're waiting, just quickly click on that. The link is on the chat box. You can scan the QR code you can see on the screen. Ayan, sige. May ano pa kayo, 15 seconds to just quickly type into, ask your question. Okay, I can see a lot of twos already. I'll be checking our Pigeonhole in a while. Thank you so much for being so active, and I hope we maintain that through the entire session. Okay, last reminder. So the evaluation form will be issued at the end of the webinar. Please be sure to answer it and to attend the whole webinar din naman, di ba? And when you open the link, check 10. Check the title of the form you are answering, the email address you will type, as well as the name, because whatever you type, yun po yung lalabas sa certificate nyo, and doon po sa email address na yun maipapadala yung certificate ninyo. If you have any concerns about the evaluations or certificates, you may email us at engage@positiveworkplaces.org up to 1 week after the event. So make sure that before that 1 week mark, we reach that 1 week mark, sana makapag-update na kayo kung wala pa kayong natatanggap na certificate. Okay? I think we're ready. A lot of you are answering twos already. Okay. So I guess we're ready to start. I love our sort of last theme for the year, which is future-proofing your career. Super important with all the changes that happened during the pandemic. Yung pag-upskill and reskill natin. That's why we invited experts in their field to help us learn new skills that we can use in the workplace. So Gian shared with us some tips and tricks on how to use AI. So dumami, hindi na lang chat GPT yung alam natin, but now we know that there are many things we can work with so that we can make our lives easier. But again, that's not discounting critical thinking. So I hope that you use AI and your brain hand in hand and not totally rely on that. And then last week, Vina was able to talk about using social media to tell your story. So it's important that we are able to tell our careers, tell our stories, and really merge our personal and professional image so that we bring our unique brand in the workplace. And today we are going to talk about compassion at work, supporting employees through grief, and building a kind workplace culture. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker this afternoon. So, Monica is a mother of two who turns her pain to purpose by creating a non judgmental community rooted in empathy and compassion. Her grief story started when she lost her younger son, Jordan, and beloved family pet, Patches, both in January 2021 and her mother in law in November 2020. Currently, she is actively working on expanding her role as certified grief educator and certified yoga teacher. She volunteers at Bereavement Families of Ontario, where she facilitates grief groups and one-on-ones for child loss. With her yoga class, she guides and empowers students to face and navigate grief and loss together with supported dialogue during their practice. She devotes herself in creating a safe and non-judgmental space for those who are grieving a loss of any kind. She focuses on creating awareness about grief with the Filipino, Asian, and BIPOC communities, aiming to break the silence around this often unspoken topic. Where grief can be seen, witnessed, and acknowledged, hope and healing is possible, even after profound loss. So without further ado, Monica, good afternoon. And we hope that you are ready to share with us your expertise on grief this afternoon.
Hi, everybody. For some reason, my video, can you see me?
Hold
There you
on.
go. Hi. There's a
There.
delay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Monica. Hold on. I'll be sharing our screen. Hold on. Yeah, you can go ahead. I'll just start sharing this. There you
Okay.
go.
So we'll probably go on the title of this webinar. And again, thank you very much to Positive Workplaces for the invitation. I think I invited myself to the
Same.
organization. So because I'm really passionate about talking about grief and being witness. And so I mean, we are Filipinos where we are known to be one of the happiest people on earth. However, there are other feelings that are often not acknowledged, especially sadness and loneliness and anguish and despair, where we're not sort of encouraged to show that. So I'm happy to discuss this very important topic and how we can show compassion at your workplaces. Next slide, please. So thank you again, Gabby, for the introduction. So I am Monica Vera. I'm a certified grief educator with David Kessler from grief.com. You can check my profile in his directory. I'm a Filipino Canadian. My role before, I was in sales and marketing for the last maybe 30 over years. So most recently, my role as I'm a real estate agent by profession for over 11 years now. I've taken some time off from that to dedicate myself to healing and also focusing on educating on grief, and really even yoga is where I am putting all my passion to. So I offer peer-to-peer grief support, workshops, and grief and yoga to everyone. And some of the focal areas that I um, can offer to people would be unexpected death, complex grief. So to name a few, would be tragic losses, accidents, homicide, suicide, child loss, parent loss, and secondary losses, and we can discuss those specifics later on. Next slide, please. So what is a certified grief educator? So I'm just going to read a quick definition from my teacher. A certified grief educator is committed to providing the highest level of grief support through education, experience, and insights into the often acknowledged rocky terrain of grief. Certified grief educators completed a certificate program designed by world-renowned grief expert David Kessler. They bring his unique methodology, tools, and decades of experience to help people navigate the challenges of grief. Next slide. So before we move on, I just wanted to explain and also put a disclaimer out there that I am not a clinician nor a registered psychotherapist. It is important that I mention this to everyone on this webinar. I based by educating you on grief education through personal experience and all of the strategies and grief modules I've learned with David Kessler and grief.com. So if you know someone right now that needs immediate attention, please seek medical or professional advice. And also there's content warning on this webinar or this slide, sorry, that may contain about mental illness that pertains to death by suicide and overdose. Next slide, please. So everyone, there's 411 participants on this room. I wanted to check in first, and if you can maybe set an intention, that could be one word or a sentence that starts with I. So an example, I am safe. So think about a word in your mind's eye, or you can whisper under your breath what that is. And also open your mind and open your hearts within this very heavy, needed topic of conversation. So you can also maybe, if you are able to, if you're not driving, take one of your hand over your chest, just your heart, and just take a deep, deep breath. Just one big inhale and exhale. And then we can move on. And next slide, please. Some quotes from my teacher. You just don't grieve the loss of a loved one. You grieve the future that you had imagined together, the memories you could have made, and an entire life that should have been. David Kessler. Next slide. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means we are no longer controlled by it. Very important quotes from our teacher about healing, and we'll explain that a little later on. Next slide. So topics today, what is grief? Types of grief, the grieving brain, the impact of grief in the workplace, a grief literate and compassionate workplace, grief and the holidays. Next slide. So I think we have, if you can log on to Menti or scan the code, we're going to have a survey question. Question, how much do you spend at work? A, more than 50%, B, less than 50%. C, I live at work, because most of us, we actually live at work. I hope not, but let's see. Wow. More than 50%. Oh, there's a few. There's one pie slice that I live at work, and the big pie more than 50% of the time. I'm surprised, but somewhat I'm not surprised because we were known to be hardworking people. So yeah. So I'm going to take that note that more than 50% of the time we spend all of your time at work. Okay. We'll take note of that, okay? So we'll go on to the next slide now. I'm going to take that as a, all right. Okay. What is grief? Grief is the internal part of loss and how we feel. The internal work of grief is process, a journey. It does not end on a certain day or date. It is as an individual as each of us. Grief is real because loss is real. Each grief has its own imprint, as distinctive and as unique as the person we lost. The pain of loss is so intense, so heartbreaking, because in loving, we deeply connect with another human being. And grief is a reflection of the connection that has been lost. David Kessler. I have my own definition of grief. I think for me is very personal. Grief for me is that lump in my throat when I hear a song that reminds me of my son, that reminds me of my mother-in-law. Grief is when I'm overwhelmed in a very crowded place where I see a complete family. So this is a wave. It's a burst of sadness and despair and loneliness and yearning and longing, all of those things. That is grief to me. I feel that even where I am in a grocery store. So it's really this feeling of, I don't know how to say it in Tagalog. It's just parang just this gut feeling because you're missing that person and you cannot talk to them or you cannot text them. You can't call them because they're no longer here forever. Next slide. Types of grief. So there are several. So I'm going to explain, and I encourage questions if they have any questions on the chat. The first one, delayed grief. We don't feel in the moment either because we are survival mode or not safe. Delayed grief. Some people have experienced this, especially when a loss has happened tragically. And one of the coping mechanisms of this individual would be just working or finding ways to not think about the loss. And then the grief will just come in such a big tidal wave, it consumes them because they didn't feel that grief early on. In my study, early grief can be considered as less than 5 years, sometimes less than 3. So this person could not be grieving and feeling the loss within the first year, second or third year. Disenfranchised grief, we judge or minimize divorce, miscarriage, moving abroad. For most of us, I don't think we call it grief, but it is because there is that separation of a relationship, separation from the person, even though their person is still here. Often minimized because the society feels like, oh, you can get married again, you could have a baby again, and that's the kind of things that we hear because they don't acknowledge that that person is actually grieving a loss. Ambiguous grief, hard to see. Infertility, estrangement. So let's talk about infertility. For women or anyone who identify as a woman, cannot biologically have a child, and therefore is not acknowledged that there is a death on that particular person, but there is grief there. Based on the women and the study that I've studied, that there is grief of someone who is a woman who isn't able to conceive biologically and missing, and then a person would minimize by saying, oh, you can adopt, you can do da 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 da, right? Estrangement is type of grief because there is a separation of a relationship. For example, if any of us have been estranged for a family member, we haven't spoken to your father, mother, aunts, friends, best friend, siblings for such a long time. So there is that gaping hole as well of missing that relationship with this person. And this person, the feeling of that is grief. Inconclusive grief, it breeds conspiracy theories. There's no body, for example, could be a plane crash. That could something that we've seen in the news. There is no physical body that we're able to have a proper burial for them. And it has all of these conspiracy theories that's attached to this type of loss. Complicated grief, painful emotions of loss don't improve with time or severe that you have trouble resuming or creating your life. Some of this, more primarily, is suicide, is known to be a complicated grief. Often also is overdose, is also a complicated grief. And we could probably explain that later. But if you have any questions, I think we have a lot of questions on the chat. I don't know, Gabby, if you wanted to address that for now before we go on the next slide.
Hold on, let me just check.
I
Yeah, grief for me is when I can't help a homeless dog or my pet dying. I'm
okay.
just scared, and I'm not sure
Okay.
on which type of grief.
Mm,
It's Jasmine's question, but she's asking if it's synonymous to repression.
repression. Jasmine, I don't know that I've never encountered that word repression, but I could consider, looking that up because it hasn't come up in my grief work. But thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. Collective and public, grieve as a group or public figure. So we recently have a lot of calamities in our country. Therefore, there is collective grief that is happening where we are feeling sadness towards our fellow citizens who've lost lives and their belongings and community because of a typhoon. Collective grief and public grief is also expressed, like if the loss of Queen Elizabeth, for example. If you follow the monarchy, I don't know. Liam Payne most recently. So there is collective grief that has happened. And I recently saw something on social where a fan of Liam had created a sort of a memorial for Liam on her own way because she was so I guess devastated by his loss. And maybe as a fan, she felt very strongly about the loss of Liam. And I do remember when Michael Jackson died in 2009, and I didn't know why I was crying, but because it kind of hit me, because I'm such a fan of Michael Jackson and even Whitney Houston. So for all of you guys, I'm a Gen X, so they're part of my childhood, my adulthood. So I felt so sad when we lost them, and also more so how they they were gone. Traumatic, combines trauma with bereavement, suicide, homicide, tragic accidents, and overdose. So synonymous to complicated is when there's trauma with grief. And for the grievers who experience in this type of grief, they often seek professional help, therapy, through the psychiatrist or psychologist, often may be required to be given prescription if that person has been grieving so for so long, or cannot really have, or even what they call stuck in grief. So in my personal experience, I've had I don't have I'm not ashamed to say that I personally have gone through my therapy for myself, and sort of it brought so many other emotions from childhood, generational trauma. So it helped me face my grief and carry my grief, going on the fourth year now. So somebody mentioned Kobe Bryant. Yes, you know what? I remember that January 2020. That's before the pandemic, when I remember from Canada, from the Philippines. I landed in Canada and I turned on my phone. That was the first thing that popped into my social, was his the plane crash. So that was also heartbreaking. Um, Anticipatory grief. So grief that comes before the loss. I think most people, for me, is anticipating grief, and this is going to sound sad, are my aging parents. So I don't have a dad. He passed away 2008. So I have a mom. So as much as I think that all our parents will live forever, but there are those that, being faced with death right now, that I come to have put myself in that preparation. Some anticipatory grief would be someone who is in hospice, palliative care. If you know somebody who are cancer, even dementia has been sort of put in that category because of the loss of their memory. So that could be um, something to consider as part of the anticipatory grief. Cumulative grief is multiple losses, which I've experienced. So within the 3 months' time, I lost my mother-in-law, I call her my mom as well. And then January, I lost Jordan and I lost Patches. So it kind of piled up that I was not prepared for. So it piled up, it cumulative. Secondary losses. So I think in this society, they don't think that this is grief, but it is. So loss of a job, estrangement, friendship fallouts, election. So maybe a hot topic is the election for North Americans. So those things, there's still grief there, because if you've been working, I've worked in a telecom company in Canada for 19 years, and I lost my job through layoff. So 19 years of my life, and all of a sudden I didn't have a job. And I identified myself as this person working for this company. So it devastated me. I cried. And I didn't realize that I was really not defined by this role in this company. But in the beginning, obviously, it hurt me. I was sad. I didn't have a routine anymore. I wasn't going to waking up at 5 a.m., taking the train. People would tell me, my husband would tell me, you can find another job, you can do this, you can do that. Maybe I was also saying those to my friends, that, oh, you can find another job, you can always do the da da da. nobody was not acknowledging it was shitty. It sucks. You don't have a job. You've put your life, your almost half of your life in the company. So friendship fallouts, it happens when you've had friends that you've been, known for all your life, and then you all of a sudden you had a fallout and you don't talk to this person anymore. That's grief, right? You miss them. You know, you miss them during their birthdays and your birthdays and other social gatherings and things that you used to do together. Election, classified as secondary losses because there was a collective grief there too, that you are now grieving for all of the plans and all of the platform that you thought was going to happen with your candidate, and it didn't happen. So now you're like, what happens now? Right? So there is grief there. So next slide, please. Thank you, Giovanni. I experienced anticipatory grief before my mother died. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So let's define these three things. So grief, feeling that overwhelms you. It can be activated when you hear a song, familiar smell or taste. It's very internal. So if you hear a song, you're like, you've been to a place that you used to go to. That happens to me a lot. Oh, my mom used to make this for us during Christmas. Oh, Jordan loves this music. Oh, Jordan loves chicken wings. Like all of those things happen. And yeah, it's grief. Grieving, intensity of emotions over time. Yeah, so I guess is still the verb of part of grief. My grieving could be intense in some days. Sometimes I have bad days and sometimes I have good days. And because I still live in this earth, I still have family here. Therefore, yeah, that's me. Mourning is what we do on the outside. So part of my mourning would be what I'm doing now. I'm very open to socials about my story and about my passion to talk about my loved ones. I encourage people to talk about him and my mother-in-law and Patches because they're all existed in this world. So there's some of the things that we want to perhaps discuss later on. Next slide. You might have seen this online about stages of grief. They are not linear, which means there's not like one, two, they always go back. So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So the stages of grief was based on a book that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote through Death and Dying book when she wrote a book about people in palliative care and they're dying. And she wrote this Death and Dying book. And also one of the books David Kessler co-wrote with her. And we wanted to make sure that we know they are not linear. I go back to anger. I go back to bargaining. I may not go back to depression, but another word for depression is dejection. So depression for me is a clinical term. Therefore, I don't feel depressed. I feel dejected, which is also synonymous to that. So I wanted to make sure that if you wanted to find the meaning of dejection versus depression. Okay, so for me, depression perhaps may require the attention of a medical profession. Next slide, please. We have a survey question. Things you have said to a grieving colleague. 1, you could have another baby. I might have said these things too in my lifetime. They are in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. You can get married again. Find a husband, or at least you, ... So let's find out. Just a bad day done. Nothing, just a hug. Oh, that's so nice. Keep going. Life is a continuous, tedious task. To master, just stay on it. It's okay. I love that. It's okay to feel what you're feeling right now. Everything's going to be okay. Be strong. God is good. It's okay to feel that way. Yeah, we are here for you. Understand them. So yeah, I think when I made the survey questions, like things that to avoid to say to anyone, not even your colleague, to friends, family. We can talk about specifics on what to say on the few slides later on, and how to have compassionate conversations, because these are the things that are somewhat minimizing someone's grief, discounting how they feel. You can have another baby. Probably, like, how do we know that if they have another baby? They are in a better place. How do we know they're in a better place? For a griever, they could say, well, what's better place than here with us alive? Everything happens for a reason. Not everything, because there are, as I explained in previous slides, there are tragic death. There's no explanation. There is no reason. You can get married again. Yeah, it's another thing that most people do when you have separated from your partner. People can say that, but you know, that person might have spent X number of years with that person, and there's grieving there too. At least you. So if you've lost a child, they might say, at least you still have another child. Like, that's also diminishing that person's loss. I just wanted to, and again, I encourage for us to have this open conversation and what you think. Then we'll move forward. Next slide, please. The Grieving Brain, The Surprising Science of How We Learn from Love and Loss, the book by Dr. Francis. So because we're talking about workplaces, when someone is grieving and on bereavement is the days that you are you are mourning the loss of your loved one, your bereavement days. So this book I read because I thought that my brain was going like really crazy, and that something was wrong with me, even through therapy. There are so many things that happen in the brain based on the neuroimaging that Dr. Francis O'Connor have done, and based on science. And can you imagine you going to work after a loss of a parent after 3 days? Like, your brain isn't functioning properly. Your brain is trying to do other things and thinking about the loss. So next slide. What happens to our brain when we are grieving? So we experience brain fog. So imagine a fog when you're going to Tagaytay and there's like that mist, like you can't see anything. If it's extreme fog, even if you put your high beams on, you can't see anything. It's foggy. Short and long-term memory loss. So sometimes if I was walking outside or walking to the kitchen, and then in a split second, I forgot what I was gonna get or doing. It was a total like blank. And it happens to me maybe, twice a day. right? Loss of concentration. So if you are in a very highly stressful position, a manager, or you're analytics, you are an actuary, you are in tech, that you need a lot of concentration. You lose concentration when you're grieving because, I mean, I don't know how long you have days in terms of bereavement, but it will affect your concentration at work. I was doing a lot of real estate deals in Canada, and I needed help because I'm losing concentration. I couldn't fill out a form of the deals, even though I've done those forms 100 million times. A lack of focus. So again, in terms of your brain, you're not able to function properly. You're not focusing on, let's say you're having a webinar right now or having even a face-to-face meeting. I mean, you have a speaker and he or she is not even, nothing is like coming into your head. It's like, I don't know if you guys know Snoopy, when you watch the cartoons, like wah, 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 wah. I don't know. That's if you could relate to that, because you are not, your brain is not there, so to speak. Fatigue, yes. So part of the grieving process, I mean, guys, I've lost loved ones. So I don't know if you have lost relationships from estrangement. And perhaps these are the things that you're not feeling. And I wanted to honor that. I'm giving these examples based on the study and also based on my personal experience, because I get it. Some of us may not be grieving so fully for our parents, siblings, friends. And sort of that's another topic where you've been estranged from them. So you might not even be thinking about them. So I just wanted to acknowledge that some of us may not even feeling this way. So, but for most of us who have lost someone deep and very, very close to us, these are the things that we feel when we are grieving. And it affects our work. Next slide. So very important question, because in North America, we do have bereavement days and they are paid based on the company that I worked for. So how many days did you take off for bereavement? 1 day, less than a week, or none? I was working with the telecom company for 19 years when I lost my dad. But my dad was in the Philippines at the time. I was given a 5 days paid vacation. So, but I could take off a few more days without pay. I could take them off as a leave of absence or a vacation day. Being in real estate, I don't have a boss. I run my own company. Therefore, I can take as long as I need, but I don't have medical insurance. So like if I don't work, I don't get paid, kind of thing, which I'm doing right now. So less than a week, I'm seeing pink. I see someone the blue one day. I see none as the second, less than a week. Some people use their vacation days. Yeah. And I don't know if the Philippines corporations even offer a paid bereavement days. I mean, sometimes it also depends if those days are immediate family. I wanted to acknowledge that your pets, for most of us, are part of their family. So I don't know if that's even considered in your company that you can get bereavement days for. because they are part of our family as well, right? So yeah, so we have less than a week as the majority of the answer, and the next is none. Oh, I'm so sorry, Liz. Oh gosh. Liz, I hope you still do have the support and help that you need. Yeah, I'm really sorry. So some statistics that is available online and part of what happens at work, if you are grieving, 19% of workers experienced grief due to death of a family member in 2021. Imagine the stats in 2020 during COVID. I don't know why I didn't even find that stats. So in the Philippines, maybe if somebody could search quickly, how many people die of COVID in 2020, and yet you had to go back to work even online, you will still be considered grieving even if you're working remote, right? 25% of workers are grieving the death of a colleague, friend, or pet. Yes. At some point in our lifetime, we will be touched by death. There's no question, because death is 100%. Yeah. 50% of employees reported at least 30 days of bereavement time. So this is probably the report that I got this from was based in the West, so North America, Europe, outside of the Philippines, perhaps. They want to have 30 days, which is considered, a long time, but they needed that. Like Liz, she wanted a month off, but she had to go back to work. So yeah, because life continues and bills needs to get paid. So, and that's why it's important to have the compassion out in the workplace, because we still need to go back to work while we're grieving. Next slide, please. 20% are substantially affected and will take off more than 30 days. Yeah. Sometimes I will tell you the stats probably would be higher to mothers who've lost a child. Yeah. 58% of employees report low productivity months after their loss. So I give the question to the managers out there who's listening, supervisors or senior level management, like just in your mind, like how many of your team members, employees had shown low productivity after their loss? I mean, you could answer that on the chat, but just think about that very quickly, right? Or even yourself as a manager. If we do have a VP here that's on in the room, 95,000, 5% of experiencing intense loss leave their jobs within 6 months following their loss and will not work the rest of the year. So, possible. Yeah, I probably would think higher because, especially for those experiencing complicated grief, traumatic grief, right? If guys, like I am a privilege enough to say that I have access to support while I'm grieving the loss of my son and my mother-in-law, even with going on 4 years now. Yeah, like I don't know what kind of support each other have when experiencing a traumatic or complicated grief. So next slide, please. Question. Did you ever think about quitting because your workplace was not supported during your loss? All the time? No, sometimes. I think I point this question out is because good. Okay, they know to think about quitting your workplace was not supportive during. Okay, good. Sometimes, no, all the time. I's answer is no. That's good. I'm glad. that you're still working when grieving. So remember, we said that you spend your time more than 50% at work too. So yeah. Okay, well, I acknowledge that, it feels that you want to quit, but for most of us, we're lifers, Filipinos. Like, I was devastated when I lost my job at 19 years. I mean, I thought I was going to retire at this telecom company, but I didn't because I was a lifer. So yeah. I don't know if we still have lifers in the Philippines at a different demographic, if millennials or Gen Zs, and mostly Gen X maybe are lifers too, but I think the world is changing also. Next slide, please. Now we're going to the solutions. Now there is hope and strategies that we could do. And this also applies to yourselves with your family and your friends. Cultivating a grief literate and a compassionate workplace. So, one, practice mindfulness, thoughtfulness, and kindness. I think that's very obvious. Offer tangible solutions and resources. Open communication and dialogue. And we will talk about each and every one in specifics. Next slide, please. So three things, I mean, there could be more, but wanted to sort of my top three: triggers, give space, and special dates. So mindfulness, when someone triggers are those things that people will say without even thinking. And sometimes it's no fault to them because again, human beings or we're not born mindful, we're not born self-aware. So if an employee or your colleague, in an event, a webinar, someone had said something and you look at her and say, oh my gosh, she just lost blah blah blah, or this happened to her, allow for some breaks if necessary. Mindful comments, avoid the word commit. So it comes to the word, comes to suicide death. So it's been coined that when you commit, it's a crime. And perhaps in the olden days, or even in the Catholic Church, in hundreds of years ago, the suicide is a crime, or even in the 60s. I can't remember the history of this, that it was considered a crime, like committing murder. So we use the word died by, and there's a lot of resources and organizations out there. So right now, I do help me if there is an organization in the Philippines similar to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, where it offers a lot of tools on how to deal with mental health and suicide. So conspiracy and theories and gossip. So these are things that when you hear someone who died, is avoid this. And this is just adds and fuels to the stress and overwhelming grief of that person. So I know that we also live in that kind of culture. So if we can try to avoid that and be mindful, because we have this thing, you don't want it happen to you. So why do we do it to them? So at some point in our lives, we will lose somebody, and hopefully not very soon. And I pray that as a traumatic loss that I've experienced. So give space. When grief burst hits, allow for a break without consequence. So if you're having a meeting, someone just been hit by a wave of grief for whatever reason, because they're trying to concentrate, but they can't because they are grieving. I hope managers can be compassionate about this. And perhaps it's really hard and you don't know how to do it. I'll talk about some tools or maybe workshops that we can do later on. But again, it's probably depends on the situation also, and if you're having a meeting. Thoughtfulness, special dates. So if you've lost someone and they kind of like remember it's your dad's birthday, it's your anniversary, you know, kind of, oh, I remember it was your dad's birthday. Oh, it's today, it's, you know, happy birthday in heaven or something like that. Death anniversaries, or you can also donate to their cause, would be nice, as a thoughtful thing. So yeah, or offer them, like, you remember that today was when they lost their loved one or what have you. You can, you know, go for a walk with them, things like that. Next slide, please. Offer tangible solutions and resources. And this applies to the workplaces. So compassionate policies like employee grief counselor, if you need to for your company, can I think this could add sort of value with your relationships with your colleagues and your employees. Grief literacy workshops can help everyone and how to avoid saying platitudes to everybody who's grieving or anyone who's grieving. Flexible leave options. This is something that I'm not sure it's if even available to workplaces today. Like how many days you're allowed as paid. Employee assistance program. We have this in the West. Again, this can be a counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist that is offered through the employee assistance program. At the time, for me, because I pay extended health benefits through my work insurance, so I was able to get access to those types of assistance. Room to grieve, thoughtful spaces. A nice quiet room would be good for someone who wish to just kind of cry, and maybe there's a dedicated room that you can, like a chapel if you're have, or just a room that you have in the office, or just giving them space. Memorial areas if you have that. Genuine listening practice, like training managers for this. So workshops will give you the tools and coping strategies for your team and for yourself that you could use in their everyday life. Include mental wellness activities during team building events. So that could be something that would help you with offering, you know, someone who's grieving and participating in this type of program or team building activity. Create grief groups who may have similar losses. I thought about this within the workplace. Like, I don't know if you're working for a Fortune 500 company where you have 1,000 people, and again, most people are remote or hybrid, is that I'm sure people have lost a sibling, child, parent, is create a mini groups within the company. I know for me, having to find my own tribe, I call it, is mom who lost a child, helped me with my coping because I really felt less alone by talking to moms who've suffered the same loss. So that helps a lot. Next slide, please. Open communication and dialogue. So this could be something that we could practice today. Listen to understand and not respond. So avoid grief hijacking is comparing your own grief. So for example, like, oh, I'm sharing with you, I lost my son. And then, oh, I understand because I lost my child, I lost my mom, or I lost somebody else, or like whatever. It's really now you're not going to listen to my story because now it's going to be all about you, about your loss. So it's practicing just listening, right? Even the word I understand sometimes can be irritating to me, especially in the early parts of my grief, because no one really can understand unless you've lost a son too, you know, or a child, even that in the same age. So it's just, you don't have to respond. You can just like touch give them a hug if they're give you consent for a hug, or just like, I'm so sorry. Let's go for a walk. Be a witness, do not fix. So we are in a society who wants to be, we want to fix things. We want to fix people because we're very uncomfortable feeling sad because we feel that being sad is contagious. Oh, being negative is very contagious. There's a difference. Sad and negative, sad and miserable, right? Sad and just, I'm just sad. Time heals all wounds. For a griever, it doesn't. It's just like there's not, maybe in situations like a loss of a relationship, but it doesn't apply to a lot of grievers when they say time heals all wounds. They're in a better place. Well, for those of us who are still here, how do we know they're a better place? We can't really know. It's just the things that we say because we want to be comfortable around them because we're seeing our friends who are suffering or grieving and we're like, I need to fix her because I want my friend back. Guys, they might not be back the same way. God's plan. So this also hurts the most people, is even those who are very religious. I must say I'm one of them because when you lose a child and you say God's plan, at that time and very early, you might be angry with God. So I don't want to offend anybody who are in very religious and Catholics, Christian. Yeah, so some of those things can be hurtful because if you lose somebody so close to you, like, why was this plan? Right? Especially someone who had a miscarriage or stillborn or who lost a young baby, young child. It's hard to accept those things. Just pray for it. So another thing that we say, no words give food. It helps a lot during a griever to just give them food. It's a gentle, thoughtful gesture. Go for a walk. Do their chores. Not only I gave no words, give food. It's like I remember I needed somebody to clean my apartment because I wasn't cleaning. So someone came to our place and started cleaning my place, folding laundry, watching TV with us without even talking, delivering Uber Eats, like Grab Uber delivery, just tangible things sometimes help. Or can I take your kids, offer them to babysit their kids if they have young children? At one point, I had a conversation with a friend and she asked me what she needs to do because her friend lost their mom or dad at the time and what can she do. And I asked the question, does your friend have any children? And she said yes. And I said, well, what would be the sort of like the most sometimes tedious thing, and it caused a lot of stress, is really doing lunches for the kids. So I told her, you know what, just go to Walmart. This is like Shoemart, Walmart, gather some snacks, make some lunches for the next 5 days. So she doesn't have to think about lunches for for the kids for the week. If she doesn't want to see you, just leave it at the door and send her a text and say, hey, I've left some snacks. I'm at the door. And you could do this for meal planning for your friends as well. And it helps because the grievers, they don't usually eat in the beginning. They don't have any appetite. So it's good to don't have any even time to brush their teeth or shower or do anything. So it would be good to have somebody cook for them or clean for them and do all of these household chores that is part of living, you know? So next slide, please. Helpful phrases and actions. So we actually talked about this now. Listen to understand. Sometimes silence is good. My heart breaks with you are good examples to say when someone's grieving. Yes, it sucks. It does suck. It's devastating. It is. Offer a master prayer would be good for those of us for those of you practicing Catholicism or are Christians, you can do that. Uber Eats, help with chores, sit and watch movie, go for a walk, donate. So these are tangible things too, and helpful things that can warm someone's heart, and that you're thinking of them, that you care for them, and they're not really, I hope, really big task, right? Help with chores, fold laundry, babysit. No need to say anything to fix them because they're grieving. They want somebody to witness their sadness, not to be fixed. Because if you're trying to fix them, it seems that you're the ones uncomfortable. It seems that but you don't want to listen to your friend about their sadness, you know? So hopefully there's, I don't know if there's a question on the chat or everyone just listening, but I hope this helps. Next slide, please. A compassionate workplace. By practicing mindfulness, offering tangible solutions, and open communication, organizations demonstrate their commitment to employee well-being. This approach not only fosters loyalty and trust, but also enhances employee morale and engagement, leading to increased productivity and overall growth for the organization. It sounds so fluff, to be honest, because I don't know if we can live in this balanced, aligned world of grief and at a workplace. But I think because it really depends on the workplace, but I've shared small, like really like very basic solutions for open dialogue and communication that we can practice in the workplace. I don't know if the workplace is going to give you X bereavement days paid. I don't know if they're going to offer you grief counseling and workshop, but those things are available, and I hope they do. I understand there could be budget involved, things like that. So, but I wish for it for everyone. Next slide, please. So I put this slide because it is the holiday season and grief intensifies, amplifies during Christmas. And I come to the Philippines in August, and I knew September is going to be Christmas already. And that's triggering for me. So you are going to have Christmas parties, gatherings, and for the 64 people in this room, if you've lost someone this year, it's okay not to attend the Christmas party. You can have boundaries. It's okay. It's okay to say yes and you cancel last minute. It's okay. Because trust me, I hate using that word, trust me. It's like I feel like I'm a car salesman. In my experience anyway, it was hard to, I say yes because I thought that I could go. Last minute, I felt so anxious, all of these things, and I was like, I'm not going. For all of you who are inviting them to the Christmas parties and supporting your friends, your colleagues, please don't force them. If they do come, find a way to honor the grief. If they wanted to leave early, understand if they do cancel. They do want to come and be happy, but sometimes it just doesn't work, especially if this is the first Christmas they don't have their family member, their loved one, their partner, whoever they've lost this year. So I don't like the word should. I hate that word should. In some other context, we can use that. Like, we should just practice kindness and understanding. For the grievers who wants to attend a party, you can maybe ask a buddy that you could say, I'm going to tell you that I want to leave early. You can tell so and so, the host, that I'll be leaving. you could have a safe word that you wanted to leave without saying goodbye. And that's with the host. You say, hey, Mr. Host or Miss Host, I'm going to come maybe just for an hour. But if I do leave, I don't want to offend you. And I just wanted to know, and host and hostess, all of you, just understand, right? And I know we're like this Filipinos, come on, tika na, kaya na tayo. Like, be happy, forget about blah, 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 blah. Forget about that. Don't be, there's a lot of toxic positivity happening, which I forgot to discuss now, because we're so uncomfortable with grief and death and sadness. But folks, those are human emotions too, and it needs to be acknowledged. I wanted to share this. My father died when still hurts since I was overseas, just 24 hours, but I came home, but he doesn't recognize me anymore. I'm so sorry, Jomel. I hope you find someone who you can talk to and the help that you need if you do need help. So, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah. So that has been, I don't know if this is my last slide. Next slide. Self-care. Okay, guys, it's been heavy and we have the 10 minutes left. So after this session, I need for you to drink lots of water. Please do. If you can take a deep breath after this session, please do. Try breathing the 4 equal waves of breathing. I'll teach you now. This is part of yoga. You inhale 4 counts, you pause for 4 counts, and exhale for 4 counts, and pause for 4 counts. Just do that. If you can't do that, just slow breathe after this, okay? Go for a walk. 2, go for a walk. And just like, because all of these emotions are now starting to surface, and I might have said something that triggered. So I want you to honor that. And have some self-care. Harold, I am so sorry. He lost 3 close relatives this year. Yeah. And some of us, maybe the relatives wants to party. Like, yeah, celebrate the life. Then go ahead and party. Maybe that's the culture, or your family is all about celebrating life. Like, hey, why not? Like, go ahead and do that, right? I just wanted you to know that if one of the family member, colleague, friend didn't want a party, is just honor that too. Next slide, please. These are the resources that when I found all the stats. So I have my website, it's survivingsunsets.com, my email, and where you can find me on social. There it is. And I think that's the last slide. Gab.
Yes, thank you, Monica. I would just like to, first and foremost, of course, thank you for sharing with us your expertise in this topic. I don't think we've discussed this real deep or even at the surface here in our webinars. And I can see that from the participation of our learners here this afternoon. They're just looking for connection so that they can share the pain of this grief. So I'd just like to ask everyone first before we head on over to Q&A how you all are feeling. I know that it wasn't an easy topic to go through, or maybe there are some feelings that we've been repressing for a long time. And now that there is a safe space to talk about this, baka ngayon siya lumalabas. So I just want to do a quick check-in with everyone. So if you're okay, can you type in one, or if you want to share what you're feeling right now, just using one word, you can also just type it in the chat box. So I just want to make sure that everyone's okay after this session. Yeah. Okay, I can
Yeah.
see
Oh, okay, good. I'm feeling sad. Sorry. Everything came back. Oh no, I saw that quickly. Huh?
yeah,
Everything came back after I lost my mother
I
during Odette.
we honor what you're feeling right now. So maybe Monica, if it would be okay, maybe you can lead us in one breathing exercise
Okay,
before
yeah,
we
I could do
transition to the
that.
next
So
activity.
everybody, so find a comfortable seat. So just like your sit bones are the bones underneath the flesh of your bum. So maybe just remove that. Not remove, but they kind of ang tawag dun, just like push it away. And then we set an intention in the beginning of the webinar. So why don't we place the right hand on your heart, right hand on your belly. Take one deep breath. Inhale, you breathe in. Exhale with your mouth open, sigh it out. One more time. Deep inhale, breathe in through your nose. Exhale, sigh it out. One more time. Deep, deep inhale, breathe in through your nose. Exhale, sigh it out. We did set an intention. So whatever the intention was that you said to yourself, I am. I can remember I am blessed. I am loved. I am safe. I matter. I am enough. I am safe. I am blessed. I matter. I am enough. Everybody slowly rub your palms together just to produce some heat. It's a yoga thing. And put the palms over your eyes. Deep inhale. Exhale. And you can just slowly open your eyes. Just kind of wipe everything. So I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Monica, for guiding us through that quick grounding exercise. And I'm sure that will help us transition to the next activity. I know that this is difficult, but sabi nga nila in emotional intelligence, you have to name it to tame it. So whatever
You read
is
the book, huh? Okay.
right, we're able to
Yep.
name the grief, how it shows up. We can definitely employ some actionable tips that you also gave. And of course, they can reach out to you right
Yes.
after. So thank you so much, everyone. I can also see all of the emojis and and gratitude that they are sharing with us.
Oh, can
So
I just share one thing though? I
yeah,
forgot. So, every year I do an open drop-in Zoom room during the holiday season, because for those of you who've lost your parents or loved one this holiday, when you go to, I know this is kind of a shameless plug, but I have because it's important. So go to my Instagram, and I'm hosting a 3 sessions. December the 3rd is the first one. It's Toronto time 7 p.m., but it's 8 a.m. Philippine time. And it's 1 hour of just a drop in to talk about your loved ones and how you're feeling during the holiday. So the title of the session is called The Empty Seat. So that would be, if you visit the Instagram, you can click the link, and there's an Evite link that you could log in, and the Zoom information will be delivered prior to or emailed to prior to the first session, which is for Filipinos. I'm sorry, it's December the 4th, 8 a.m. because I do have Toronto and Canadian followers as well, so I offered it to them as well. So yeah. But
yes,
if
thank
you're
you.
available, I might be there by myself, but the room will be open. So anyone can join.
Wow, that is a great opportunity. So I hope that you get to take that seat, that schedule. I shared Monica's Instagram page in our chat box. So just click on that link. So Monica, I'm just gonna um spice things a bit, I'm just gonna give them the evaluation form first. But since we already have questions on Pigeonhole, so while they're answering the evaluation form, we can already start the Q&A
Okay,
because it's already 12:28. So just hanging tight, just stay there.
no
Oh,
problem.
hold on. I'm just gonna share the evaluation form quickly. So you can already scan the QR codes you can see on the screen. So for those of you who have surnames from A to L, please scan the QR code you can see on the left side of the screen. For surnames M to Z, it's on the right side. And then we're also going to share the links in the chat box so that you can already access that while we're answering the questions, because I feel like there are a lot of questions on Pigeonhole, so that it won't be, when if it's okay with you, that if we can stay for around 5 to 10 minutes more
No,
for
I'm fine with it. This is what I do. I talk about grief all the time.
yes, please take that and just
We don't want to normalize this. This is why I am passionate about it, and I could put a smile on my face is because if we talk about sadness and happiness and grief, it's normal. Whatever normal is to you. So yeah.
yes, and even in the Philippines, our tendency is to really repress these things because we have to work, we have to do our responsibilities. So it's nice that we can create a safe space even for this small pocket in the day to talk about it. So thank you so much, Monica, for reaching out and really pushing through with our session this afternoon. So I'm just inviting Joyce to share our pigeonhole so that we can already start answering questions. There you go. So maybe we can scroll down. I think you were also able to answer some already because the first questions that popped in here are what they asked at the beginning of our session. Oh, we can do this. How can I know if the space I gave is already too much to the point where it can seem I'm avoiding the person? And how can I avoid this?
How can I know if the space I gave is already too much? So that means the space that there's a gap that he or she, this person is no longer talking to the griever. This is what I'm
Yeah,
getting it from, right?
yeah, that's also what I'm getting.
Okay, so let's ask your heart. If you're asking this question, there is longing to connect,
Mhm.
right? So I think we're so afraid of being rejected. We're so afraid of sending the first message or connecting first. And let me tell you, if there's a gap of years, months with this person, if you do send a text, how would you know if you haven't done it? How would you know if they're going not going to respond or connect with you if you don't do the first move? And I think sometimes because we live in this like there's ego around this, and I know that. So if we can take away the ego first, and if you want not to avoid this person, I don't know the context of the situation, but just send from your heart that heartfelt message or a card if you or tangible thing, if that could be something that would maybe connecting with this person. I don't know how long you've known this person. Do you know their favorite thing, drink, like things that would warm their heart? And I hope that answers that, because you're trying to avoid this person. So I mean, like, why? Like, I wanted to know more now, you know?
Yeah, and maybe there's just this openness on your end as well. If the person
Mm-hmm.
doesn't respond or isn't
Mm-hmm.
still ready, at
Yeah.
least right, they know
And
that.
yeah. And sometimes grievers don't respond, guys. And please don't get
Mhm.
offended because they don't respond. People have messaged me, some have relentlessly messaged me. Sometimes I don't respond. And it took me a year to reply back. So, but if they're your friend, they're actually going to say, hey, let's get coffee. Yeah, you never know. You never
Yeah.
know.
So I saw something here, how to show
Mhm.
empathy with your employees when you as the leader has a you have an ongoing personal dilemma.
Isn't this a great question?
It
You
is.
already, this is like already a personal connection. Grief, there is no status. Grief, there is no economic status or your role as a manager or as an employee. What is it? What is the best way now is to connect. So empathy to employees. So I want also for you, the manager, is practicing self-care and boundaries, right? You have to, I want you to honor that because I don't want you to give the compassion when you yourself is running empty, if you know what that means. So give, if you want to give out of your heart, you can give maybe in small bits for now because that's all you can handle because you're also suffering from something or someone or grief. But showing compassion to one human being without the role of a manager, that speaks a lot already. But also honor your own mental health and your own boundaries, right? And I get that because we cannot give what we don't have. So if we're running empty with our own stress of our grief, how can we give that to someone else? So
Yeah, I really think that this is difficult because here in the Philippines, there's really that high power distance and
I know.
spirit of masculinity. So like if you're in leadership positions, you can't show vulnerability, or if you do, you'll be seen as weak. But now,
Weak.
yeah, that's the stigma that we're trying to address. That at one point, like what you said, if tayo yung hindi napupuno, at tayo, labas lang ng labas and we just give and give to others, that would be really difficult as well.
No, yeah, it would be. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else? Maybe we could head on over to the last,
How do you,
maybe
well,
question
just
that.
one here. How do we show compassion to the grieving while
Oh,
implementing the policies of the workplace?
yeah, that's actually
Oh.
a good question. Go ahead.
How do we show compassion to the grieving while implementing policies of the workplace? You know, the world, as much as we don't want, we still live in this world of living and making money and running a business. I get that, right? I think you can do both because you can take the time to show that you're vulnerable. And I know it's hard for us to show a little bit of compassion and you're implementing policies. So depending what kind of policies are you implementing? Are the policies sort of like going to establish like hard consequences? I don't know what the policies are, but I think there is room to have both, right? And I know it's hard for big companies to show compassion, but at the same time, guys, everybody has parents, have siblings, maybe, have children, maybe, have been touched by death. So I don't know why there is this gap between compassion and policies, too. I think there's room with the right kind of guidance. So perhaps if you ask me and build this kind of compassion in the workplace type of workshop, I'm more than happy to do that. Yeah, I think there could be room because we're all humans. And I told you, death is 100%.
Yes, and one thing that I can remember from one of our speakers this year, he said that ask the employee, ask
Yeah.
them what they need.
Mm.
And maybe you as a leader, you would know how to balance those things, accommodating the need at the moment, but at the same time,
Mhm.
still holding them accountable for the deliverables that they need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
so that's a great one.
How to show kindness. I think we answered that. Practicing training compassionate fatigue. I know. How do we person really compassionate coworkers grieving? I think we've answered that. How will you know if it's true or honest? How do we help employees management at the same time? Did we answer that? How can we help employees in the management? Yeah, we answered that. How do you encourage your boss to be more compassionate with us? Oh, okay. So guys, everyone has emotional wounds. All of us, even our parents, even our grandmothers, even our grandparents, pass on to us. So if you have a boss that you think that he or she is not compassionate, this boss has emotional wounds that hasn't been addressed. You get me? There's something that about this person that's not showing compassion. It's really deeper than showing it to you. You know, because most of us have this emotional wounds, generational trauma, generational curses, all of these things that affects leadership. If someone is not mindful and self-aware and emotionally intelligent, they might not even show compassion. So there could be power tripping. So how do you encourage your boss? I think we don't tell our boss what to do, right? Because that person should know, like how, like when they go home, and then the boss went home after reprimanding an employee, like I could never even go to sleep after doing that, right? Like I don't know. I mean, depends the situation. Like I don't know whoever who brought this up. This boss might not be really compassionate, Gabby, right? So, and I hear you because they're running a business, so I understand there are what you would call that, all of the performance, what do you call it? Because I'm not in corporate anymore. They have their levels of performance to achieve in the year, or quota, or whatever that you have to achieve, and they don't have time for being compassionate. Am I
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they say, that they don't have time to be compassionate.
Yeah. But
But
what
we
if they touch with if they've been touched with death, tragic or very deep grief, it will shift. That I know.
Yeah, but I think it's really just um trying to, or at least in the Philippines, we're still trying to introduce that concept of how can leaders be compassionate, but at the same
Okay. Okay.
still be accountable for these things, because it's a new skill set that has not been taught to us. So
Ah.
whatever was taught to them by their mentors, that's what they're trying to apply at
Mm.
this point and at this generation. But they're also seeing the negative consequences of it, like high turnover or like employee dissatisfaction. That's why they're starting to get programs to know more about how to have emotional intelligence in the workplace, or
Yeah.
how can we give feedback or mentor another person without or not without hurting their feelings, but it's more how do we frame it in a way that we're talking about strengths and strength deficit,
Mm.
that what's bad in a person. So I think it's a work in progress. It will take time,
Yes.
change to
Yeah.
apply, but definitely we're on our way. We're on our way. Maybe we can close with this question. Actually, it's not a question, but Ferdinand was saying that actually I don't think a lot of workplaces have a grief policy, or if there is, maybe it's just in the handbook or in the manual that not everyone reads, right? It's like
Yeah.
whoever wrote that, baka sila lang yung nakabasa. But
Oh,
so
yeah.
people are not aware. Maybe you can give us some tips on what a grief policy can look like, or like what
Um,
contents can it.
I think I wouldn't because grief is an emotion, like a policy. So it really depends on the workplace, right? Like for example, um, like how many days you have, or offer grief counseling, or policy would be a hey, because a policy to me is like it's like an order. It's like a do's and don'ts. It's like a policy, right? Because grief and policy to me are not synonymous. I think maybe grief, some kind of a grief program, for example, would be a better way to put it. Let's say they can host grief workshops. So if they allow for the company to have like a grief counseling once a month, or they offer an employee assistance program. So let's say, I lost my mom or whatever. I told my boss, and my boss says, okay, Monica, this is a number for the grief counselor. You have X number of sessions with her that is paid by the company, or after 8 sessions, you can go directly to her and pay her in full on your own. Like things like that we can work out. Or Monica, I'm giving you 4 free sessions with Monica Vera, grief counselor, and after that, like we could do all creative things to help build a program. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think it will complement what is already given, because I think there are bereavement leaves. There are
Mm,
assistances of some form, but I don't think a lot of people know what they can avail. So I guess that
yeah.
can also include letting people know that these are the
Mhm.
things that are available in the company that they can definitely tap when they need it the most. So thank you so much, Monica, for this afternoon and for sharing your answers to those questions. You can
Thank
also share
you.
them if you want to answer them in your own social media page, and to show
Yes.
our appreciation
Oh,
presenting to
thank
you this
you.
certificate. So thank you so much for generously providing your time and expertise as a resource speaker for this particular webinar, Compassionate Work, Supporting Employees Through Grief and Building a Kind Workplace Culture, held on the 27th of November 2024, signed by our Chief Enabling Officer, John Baluyot, and our Chief Wellbeing Officer, Nikki Vergara. Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing with us your story. I know that there are days that it's difficult to talk about it, but
Hmm.
to know that there are a lot of people who resonated with your message this afternoon,
I
and
hope so.
the message they have been waiting to hear for this year. So thank you so much. Is there
Thank you,
any
everybody.
yeah, do you have some last words for our participants this
Um,
afternoon?
I think I just wanted to extend also my gratitude towards you, Gabby, and the whole team at Positive Workplaces. And I really hope that we can be grief literate in the future. I know it will take time, but if anybody who's listening that is part of the human resources or employee relations department in this room is to perhaps add some kind of a grief program in 2025, I'm more than happy to work with you through Positive Workplaces to do some workshops in 2025. Um, so yeah, and then again, you can follow me on social as well. And hope to see you on the grief room next month.
Yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Monica. And there are a lot of gratitude in our
Thank
chat.
you.
Please
Thank
feel
you
free
so
to
much.
savor each one of them.
Thank
So
you.
thank you
Thank you,
everyone for
everybody.
us for the last 3 webinars. Pwede ko bang makita sa chat box ilan yung naka-attend ng all 3? Can you type in 3 if you were able to attend all 3 webinars? So there ang bilis. Krisha said 3 out of 3. Mary Rose, Mary Grace. Ayan. Thank you so much for joining us for all 3 webinars. And meron kaming surprise kasi for next month, we are going to be more playful with the webinar. So because you are the users of this free webinar, we want to do a code design session with you. Gusto nyo ba? Gusto nyo bang i-code design kung ano yung ginagawa natin in our free webinar series? Can you type in yes? Ayan, sabi ni Krisha, yes. Yan. So we hope you can join us this December. So we're designing a co-design session for our free webinars para makita natin kung ano yung pwede nating gawin to improve and enhance this service of positive workplaces. So lahat ng nag-yes, we hope that you still follow our socials so that you will be kept up to date kung kailan yung design session na yon, and we'd really love to hear from you kung paano natin pwede improve, ano yung topics pa na pwede natin pag-usapan sa ating free webinars. And we heard you because a lot of you are asking kung pwede bang maging face-to-face ang ating mga sessions. We are again opening our public courses for 2025. So for those of you who want to upskill and reskill, we are opening our leadership development series for the next year. So makikita nyo that there are 9 courses that you can join in. So sige, I'll give you time to just look at the screen. Tignan nyo kung ano yung mga, uy, parang magre-resonate yan sa akin. Or like, I think I need to send this to my boss at kailangan niya tong attendan. So take a screenshot so you can share it with your HR, with your managers, para you can present this as a training initiative for you if meron kayong training budget that you need to utilize. So we encourage you to enroll early because dun sa early bird promo natin, it's only 5,000 pesos per course. So that's per course and it will include your snacks, lunch, your worksheets, and of course, an e-certificate. Okay? So, makikita kaya namin kayo online, ay on-site naman for our free courses. Alam ko na most of you are far. We will try our best to siguro run it muna in Metro Manila so that it will be easier to access for most. But we are also trying to look for venues in the provinces so that we can also visit them. So this January, we have Leadership for New Leaders. We have Basic Management Principles coming up as well. Meron din tayong modern coaching and mentoring, and those are all for emerging leaders. You also have your future ready skills. So if you enjoy using Padlet and everything that we are presenting here in our free webinars, we have our future ready skills courses, which are digital tools for collaboration, design thinking, and problem solving, which we are going to give you a taste on December, and data storytelling as well as insighting. We also have positive team dynamics. So meron tayong positive communication, sustaining the spark, and creating safe spaces and teams where we will talk about psychological safety. So Jewel sent the links. So if you need more information or if you want us to talk to your management or kung gusto nyo rin tong i-order for in-house training, we are definitely open for those collaborations. So just reach out to us at thrive@positiveworkplaces.org so that our colleague Alma can get back. So I think a lot of you were already able to answer the post-evaluation form. Again, thank you so much for attending this webinar series, and we hope to see you all this December. So thank you so much, everyone, and we hope you have a good rest of the week. Thank you.